So in previous episode, we talked about being the solo designer or being at an enterprise that doesn't have that kind of mature design influence. How does one, maybe more specifically to maybe juniors, how do they push that idea of like implementing research as like part of their process when there was none before? Any quick tips around that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things you can do, which is one, find your champion.
And you're officially live.
We are officially live, exactly. I mean, this is just an experiment, right? Hello, everyone. There we are. And today, special episode, we have a guest. It's Sara Fortier, and CEO of Outwitly. And we're going to talk about user research, UX research, and opportunities that you have as a junior designer. Sara has a few hot takes there that we're going to discuss. So it's going to be a very interesting episode. Sara, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. This is first guest on this show. So it's something nobody's going to take away from you, the first ever guest. So that's going to be great. Tyler and I have been discussing recently a lot about stakeholder management, user research. I myself don't really know what to believe anymore. Looking at social media, some people say that, AI, for example, not useful at all. Some say it's the next big thing for research in particular. And then also I see people who do not do research at all. They're all talking about taste and craft and visual design and animation. So they are very strong opposites. What should you believe? What should I believe?
It's a great question. Yeah. And I think so I am an advocate of research, but in my career, I've done both, like the design and the research. I've been a part of teams that didn't do a lot of research, and mainly maybe that was coming down from a lower maturity organization where it's really product heavy, engineering heavy, and you're like the sole designer there trying to be like, we should talk to some users, but they're like, shh, don't talk about that. Just get to work on these features, right? And then I've been, on projects, and especially at Outwitly on the consulting side, we do a lot more of this like end-to-end kind of strategic discovery research and going into then, validation, user testing and stuff like that. And, I think research is always important. I think what's coming up now with AI is, as you said, can AI just replace the research? Can it speed it up? Can it do it itself? Can product owners, there's talk of like things like synthetic personas, and, we talk to a lot of design leaders and they're trying to figure out, how do I get ahead and have a perspective on AI and how AI should be used before the product owners come and like just start using it with their own devices and kind of deciding how it should be used and asking it, like, if you were, a person of said age using this, what would you think of this, right? We don't want that kind of use of AI. So I think all of the questions and thoughts that everybody is having right now is totally valid. And I think for the folks that are, junior coming into the field or intermediate, I think it's really about looking at building your influence within the organization and looking at your soft skills and how you can, differentiate yourself as not just someone who, even when you're talking about usability testing, like that is something that where AI probably will, take that piece itself, if it's not already doing it faster than, let's say, discovery and design research, which is more complex. And so knowing that AI is there, it's going to get better. It won't replace research altogether, I don't believe, but I think it will get better at analyzing data. You can use it for your research plans and all of these different aspects of your workflow. But I think it's about looking at you as the designer or the researcher and asking yourself, like, what are the skills that you're bringing to the table outside of the hard skills of this is how you do the methods, and how are you getting inciting action from the research results? How do you inspire your stakeholders to want to talk to your users and learn from them? How do you get them, once you've done the research, to actually take the action? All of these things are sort of, you need to be really empathetic and, emotionally intelligent. You need to be strategic about how you think about this research in terms of adding business value. So I would say, that is an area that maybe people don't think about enough, but as AI becomes more prominent, will be more important.
Nice. I think it'd be great if we can kind of dive into like what research looks like today, and then maybe we can kind of pivot over to like what that might look like in the future. So in previous episode, we talked about being the solo designer or being at an enterprise that doesn't have that kind of mature design influence. How does one, maybe more specifically to maybe juniors, how do they push that idea of like implementing research as like part of their process when there was none before? Any quick tips around that?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a few things you can do, which is one, find your champion, because there's usually always going to be someone there who believes in you and believes in the value of design, even if they don't fully understand it. And I talk about design as the higher level umbrella that contains research. So because research is done for the purpose of design and to improve, some experience, right? But there's usually a stakeholder who has some influence within the organization, who is there. You have good conversations with them. They seem amenable to kind of what it is that you're talking about. So one is find who your champions are, because they're going to be the ones that are going to push it up to the top for you. And they're going to bring you into other conversations that you weren't in before. So don't just be really like narrow in terms of your viewfinder of teammates and collaborators. Look across departments and And then I think, the other thing is in terms of influencing stakeholders, the work with small wins and maybe asking forgiveness instead of permission.
Love it.
Sometimes you can get away with doing, some side research. It's a little informal. Maybe it's not the perfect user, but you build up like a little bit of momentum because you get some great insights. And then they're like, oh, you did that? And you're like, I know, sorry. I just kind of squeezed it in the time that I had, but look at these great insights, right? So that's always worked really well for me. And
for me as well.
It's like, it's just like taking the initiative, right? And then the other part of it is once you do this, let's say you do get a small group of users you're able to interview or something, don't waste or squander the opportunity. Like make that the best frickin' thing you've ever done, the best insights, bring the stakeholders in, show them quotes, show them videos, like get them excited and show them a vision of how it could change the product or the service or, the business. Like hard metrics, people talk about that a lot right now, like related to design and research, like, we need UX metrics and stuff, but I think not enough people are talking about the fact that you need to sell a vision with your research insights. It's part of the design storytelling piece. So that was a long ramble, but I feel like all of those things are important.
I have long rambles as well. Maybe it's a designer thing to have long rambles. Yeah, but I can relate to most of them. It makes me think about all the different projects. Back in the day, I've been the solo designer at at companies many times, and there always was someone who was not a designer per se, but designer friendly.
Yeah.
As a junior myself back in the day, I was like, well, but I'm a designer. You're not. So, but then I should have been a little bit more open to them, like see if I can. I was a smaller piece on the chessboard, just a junior designer in a not a design mature company. I should have used that bigger piece, or to my advantage. So I think that's a very good advice. I've also had a interesting moment where the company told me like, well, what you're working on is for our employees. It's not client facing. So we're not going to do research. Or our employees aren't important is how I perceive that message. The asking for forgiveness bit, what you just said, I think that would apply there, right?
Yeah.
Just see if you can do something anyway, I think.
Yeah. And you don't have to frame it as like a big 16-week research project. It's just side conversations, office hours that you can set up with some of the employees. Like think of creative ways to frame it to stakeholders so that they're not, usually the pushback on research isn't that for the most part, it's not that they don't want to hear the feedback. Sometimes you can get stakeholders who are afraid that the customers are going to say something horrible that then reflects on the customer, or that reflects on that stakeholder, sorry. But in the case of, employees or something like that, that's usually they just don't want to waste the time and therefore in their minds money on that.
Yeah.
And so finding creative ways to frame it so that you can kind of get away with just doing a few, even if it's a few conversations over lunch, if it's office hours, to gather some data, some feedback, and even if not done with perfect rigor, is better than nothing.
I feel like it's also something that happens at the lunch table. When you have your stakeholders there and you're just listening to them complain about the issues in their project. And then you can, at a later moment, you can swoop in and say something like, hey, I heard you speak about this and this challenge. I think design can really help you solve that challenge. And here's how. And then something really specific. It doesn't have to be a formal presentation. Like, here's 50 slides on how UX research is super awesome. They're not going to have time for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think the part of being a really good researcher or designer is that listening. We talk about active listening and being a good listener and stuff, and maybe listening more than you speak and stuff. So you can hear the conversations that are going around, hear from the stakeholders about, okay, yes, they're complaining about some business processes, they're complaining about some feature stuff. And design is an amazing thing. Like, it can solve so many problems, right? You use design thinking for business problems, you use it for service design, you use it for UX related, apps and things. But most people have such a narrow view of what design is. And so if you can really open your ears and listen to what's going on around you, and also listen to what's going on from a business perspective of like, what are the pressures that they're under? So you can have more empathy for your stakeholders, because that's how you build trust. And then they want to bring you into more stuff because they know you get it, right? And you're not just going to be proposing something that is going to cost them a lot of money, but not bring them ROI.
ROI, Tyler, that's your thing, right?
Big ROI guy.
Yeah, the ROI guy.
It's important.
I'm curious, so research can look like different depending on like where you are in the project. So research can look like an initiative, like you're looking to kind of discover more about a specific use case that you want to kind of delve into. And then other cases, it could be tied directly to a project. Are there different approaches to each one? How do you kind of look at like strategically, like getting onto a research project, what to be mindful of?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's kind of the idea of like the exploratory research, which is where not much is known. And so, but it might have a big strategic value or impact for the company. So in those cases, you maybe would want to pitch like a bigger research initiative, right? So, and that's usually like they have to have the budget for that, and that there has to be time built in. So that can sometimes mean you're looking at a bigger company. But also you consider risk, and like the company should consider risk, right? So if they're launching something completely new and they don't know how it's going to do in the market, but it's risky for them if it fails or very costly, like that's another area where you want to do some research, at least validation research. But let's maybe, if we go back to the exploratory side, where there's something they want to understand, maybe it's a mystery in terms of the customer journey. People are dropping off. There's a lot of churn, but they're not sure why. Like the data is showing from an analytics standpoint, something's up with our customers, or they've done a marketing survey, right? Like a really broad marketing survey, and they're getting a low net promoter score or something like that, but they don't have like the qualitative data. That's a great place to go and do some of this discovery or design research, right? Which is like in-depth interviews or some observations could be useful if you're looking at trying to understand a process or a system, a service, or a really complex app, let's say. Like we do a lot of research with, let's say, doctors, right? So they're using like complicated electronic health records, and they're not going to remember in an interview all the pain points that they have with that really unintuitive tool. So you actually need to go and like watch them use it so you can catch all of these, latent needs and things that they're maybe not able to articulate. So so I think in terms of deciding what research methods you use, it's really, how much is known about it? How risky is it to the business? What's this potential strategic impact? How complicated is the subject matter? how mature is, let's say, even the product? Because if the product is working great mostly, and then you're really looking at iterative improvements, and that's, some usability testing for that, right? But if there's they want to go into a new market, and then you want to do more research to really help them tease out where are the opportunities of innovation. And that's the stuff I love doing, is all that more strategic research that then feeds into the product.
I'm curious, some risk, or you've kind of touched on it, but when you've done your research, you have to make sure that you're kind of advocating for it to be used. So how does I guess first question would be how long is that research then valid? And then how do you keep it as a collateral piece moving forward that people kind of go back and refer to? So it's always you're keep digging at the value that's contained within that particular research initiative.
Yeah. So sort of the longevity of the research output, how,
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess even before I answer maybe the longevity piece, I would say before you even begin to do any research, one thing that I think is really important is getting all of your stakeholders aligned on the research goals, why it is that you're doing this research, who you need to talk to, and getting hyper clear and realigning constantly throughout. Let's say you do have a couple month discovery process, because so many times I have seen researchers not do that front piece. Then they get to this great output that they're so excited about because they've just fallen in love with the research. They've fallen in love with the users. All of these amazing ideas are coming out, and they go to present it to the stakeholders, and that just totally falls flat, because those stakeholders are this is not a priority. We're not working on this. Had you asked me 4 months ago about what it is that we needed to study and really aligned on that, then we would have gone to an output that would be more useful and would have more longevity. So I think the first part that is often skipped is this planning and alignment piece, and not being afraid to, herd cats and push a little bit, bring the stakeholders together. Some of them will butt heads, and be the facilitator. I mean, you also add strategic value when you do that, when you can lead higher level strategic conversations. But then the longevity piece after that it'll last longer, the research, if you've done that upfront.
Is that a saying, to herd cats? As a cat person, that sounds very
I
interesting
use
to me.
all the time.
Tell us more.
So I talk about it. Well, it is an expression, but basically it's trying to herd cats is an impossible task, because cats are not sheep.
Right.
They just they're slightly uninterested in you. They sort of do what they want. They're all over the place. And so think of your stakeholders like cats a little bit, right? They all have their different perspectives. They all have their interest level.
Yeah.
And so you have to bring those people together. You have to get them excited about the same direction. And so that's why I sort of joke about herding cats, because it's hard. It's not easy.
I've been there.
I'm a cat person, my cats the same. Yeah, I'm not going to try tonight. By the way, that's not a fun thing for him to do. I mean, cats are the world's favorite asshole, right? They're so annoying, but they're great at the same time.
But they're so cute. Yeah.
Yeah. Listening to you, I've been thinking, perhaps interesting also for junior designers who aren't really sure, should I do the visual side of things, but I'm not really sure if I'm good at it. I like working with people, and the empathy part, the psychology part. Is UX research, is that a full-time role, or is it always going to be part of a bigger role? And then from the perspective of one person, can you do this full-time all the time?
Yeah. And so the answer to that really depends on the company that you're working at. And so, we didn't talk about it, but at my company, Outwitly, we do a lot of staffing, right? So we place full-time designers and researchers at enterprise companies. And we also do consulting. But on the staffing and the talent side, which is interesting because I never thought I would end up doing any work in that, I get to learn and see what are people asking for? What are the directors of, said company looking for in the researchers or the designers? And so I would say there is still very much a full-time UX research role that exists, and that we have, our folks working as full-time UX researchers in large companies, right?
Right.
But more and more we are being asked for UX generalists, Where I think it's interesting with COVID in 2020, there was this big, everyone froze like, oh my God, can we even continue to do work at all? But then all of a sudden, 2021, it was like everything needs to go digital. All services that were currently offline need to be digital. So huge UX boom, boot camps, all of this stuff, people entering the workforce, commanding higher prices, things like that, right? And then 2023, 24, now like the market is correcting and there have been like a lot of layoffs and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So in the big boom, that's where all these roles teased out as like individual roles, right? So it's like you've got your UX designer, your UX researcher, maybe you have a separate UX writer, like an UX writer is maybe more recent even, but UI designer. And now I think what's going to happen and is starting to happen with AI is it'll go back to what it was maybe pre-2021, which was if you were a UX designer, you were like kind of a generalist. Like you could do the research, you could do the design, you could go all the way to detailed design. Maybe if you were more of a researcher, you didn't love going all the way to the detailed design, but you were somewhere on the spectrum where you could do a lot of things, right? And so I think it is probably going to go back that way. And so making sure you're diversifying. I mean, if you talk about a stock portfolio, you talk about a business, you got to diversify, right? So you have to diversify your own skills as a designer or researcher, right? So it's like, can you add strategic value? Can be an amazing facilitator that they're going to bring you into all of these higher level conversations. All of a sudden, everybody wants you. Product wants you, engineering, marketing is kind of curious about what you can do because they get to know you. They like your thinking is what really excites them, right? I mean, you can make something come to life on a screen, but it's how you think that is going to really get them excited. So I lost my train of thought and went off on a ramble there.
That's all right.
That's okay. That's okay. So the answer is to the question: can you be a UX researcher full time?
Right. Yeah.
Maybe, but listening to you talk about more of the increase of the popularity of the generalist, basically, the answer is probably not. Like if you're really early stage designer, like you're not sure, you have no job, and you have to choose a direction. It's probably not smart to hyper focus on one thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Research can be a part of your skill set, but should not be the full skill set.
Yeah, exactly. So you can do some research, you can do design, you can think about the flows. And I mean, I had a really interesting conversation with a client recently where he was kind of showing me some of the stuff that they're doing on the AI side. And it even surprised me in terms of, this isn't stuff that's like publicly available that you can just download or get a subscription for, but it's like, where AI will be going. And in the future, it's looking probably more like will be these UX architects, right? Which is that all of the research and the data needs to go into the AI tool. How that research or the input comes, it could be a BA, a business analyst, could be a product owner inputting that, or it could be the strategic UX thinker is doing some research, figuring out what the needs are, thinking about the flows, thinking about all of the information. Like that person could also input into the tool, right? Same as today in any company that you have. You could have companies that have no UX designers and it's just BAs and product owners who are like devising the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
But so I think this idea of diversifying your skills and being the strategic person who understands research, who understands design, and knowing in the future you may not be the person who is the Figma expert, like with all the screens and stuff like that. You may be tweaking and setting up the infrastructure of how this AI tool embedded into your organization, using your design systems and all the corporate knowledge will use your input in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a solid point. That's what I'm seeing also. Like to the like flattening of the roles and like the automation piece, I feel like a lot of the automation happens from like the final deliverable like Figma thing to the production code. And but that's like the quality of that kind of translation comes from the input that you were talking about earlier, where I feel like that's where the value kind of is going to be pushed towards, like more the research part, that kind of BA role, like the quality of the research and that input, Like if that's done correctly and you have all the context, the output is kind of uplifted, because like we're starting to see a lot of, we've all probably seen it, like a lot of AI slop, a lot of like AI products that are just like, it's so quick and cheap to build, but like it's the quality of the input that sets that quality. So if there's more emphasis in terms of like the research and stuff at the earlier stage, like the quality of the output is obviously going to be better.
Yeah. And then two, in terms of career and places that I would be looking to get, if I was junior or intermediate, looking to get experience from, it would be the more complex scenarios. So where I do feel like companies that maybe have less budget for headcount or something could be turning a lot to AI, right? And they'll be more nimble, more adaptive. They don't have all these cybersecurity requirements. They can get any tool that they want. Or is that it could be public sector, it could be the education space, like where there's a lot of thinking that needs to happen in order for a tool to be created. Like there's a lot of context that needs to be understood, where there's a lot of different stakeholders. If you think about the system that, whatever product or service it lives in, it's a complicated system. There's a lot of partners. Like that's where I would be looking to try to get experience, because those environments will continue to be complicated. And AI can't just come in and quickly create a little tool to solve all of that complexity, right? And then on the positive side with AI is like some stuff that currently in our human experience is really frustrating, but never gets any budget. Well, guess what? AI is going to just redesign that and it'll be much better for us, which is great. And there never would have been a UX designer on that project anyway. So so there are definitely positives too.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy to forget the positives, spoke to someone today, like 10 plus years experience as a developer. And he literally said to me, like, I'm scared. We're all scared. Like it's just the truth. Like we're all scared that everything's going to go away and going to be taken over. But we forget the positives, that it's probably going to help us do less annoying things.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I think I always view, I talk about this in my book, but I always view like designers as the bridge between technology and humans. Like our job is that we are the bridge. We go and we try to understand like what are the tech requirements, what are the human requirements, and we like put it together, right? And AI is only going to create more tech and therefore more human and tech interactions. And therefore there will always be a need for designers and to be in that space to help bridge things together. It's just that it will change. It won't look like how it looks today. And so that part is scary.
Yeah. Well, people forget that things have been changing pre-AI as well, but that's not a thought. So tell us more about that book. It sounds very interesting.
Oh, yes. Yes. Well, my book is called Design Research Mastery. And all of the things that we've been talking about here are, I cover in my book. And it's really about how to, do great research, how to lead that, how to do the upfront planning, all the way through specific methods and analyzing data, even though AI will take a lot of that, right? But it's good to know how you're supposed to do it. But layered throughout what's really, a lot of methodology is how do you communicate with stakeholders? How do you get them bought in? How do you build your influence inside of the organization? What are the soft skills that you need moving forward? And I think it's especially relevant now with the AI conversation. And it's funny because when I started writing it, I mean, AI was talked about, but really like ChatGPT had not launched or anything, but publishing cycles take a long time, right? So I started writing it, and then mid writing it, ChatGPT was launched and all of this AI stuff comes out. And I was like, you know what, this is actually perfect timing, because throughout my career, what I've found is that the people who are successful in design and research are the people who are good at the people stuff. So, the ones who are empathetic, the ones who can navigate stakeholder conversations, who can understand, okay, I'm hearing some signals about certain business drivers, I'm going to incorporate that into how I'm talking, right? And so that's all integrated in the book as like almost a mix of like self-help self-improvement with the design and research methodologies. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, you're saying AI is going to take away a few of those things, but you're also saying the book is full of, the soft skill, the politics game.
The
That's
politics
something
game,
AI cannot take that away.
Yeah.
So that sounds like it's a book, it's almost evergreen, like it's going to be relevant still. So when someone's afraid, like, should I invest in education when it might be outdated by the time I finish my education? Like, doesn't sound like that risk applies to your book. Like, it's really about soft skills that you need anyway.
Yeah, you need those anyway. And then it's even the methodology stuff is like, for example, take observations and how to do observations. I mean, an AI bot isn't going to come and a drone be observing a user. Right? Let's hope not. But so it's like, how do you actually conduct observations properly? And what are the tools that you need to do that? And yes, AI can build your field kit for you. Woohoo! That's going to save you, a week's worth of time. That's great. And you can use it as information to prompt the AI with how to build a field kit. So I think it's there's a lot of methods, right? And a lot of tools that we use as designers and researchers.
Yeah.
And that stuff, I was just using FigJam just earlier today, and I'm still just amazed by that little jam bot thing that is what kind of workshop thing do you want? And I was like, I would like to do an AI brainstorm on how might we questions. And then it just populates a board for me. I was like, oh, great, thanks. I don't have to worry about that. I can go back to doing other things now, right? So that is a great way for us to use it.
I'm curious, in terms of AI tools, are there any practical tools or AI tools that you use currently to kind of you work with during your research initiatives? For example, a quick one for me is that I use Loom recordings for all my sessions. So a quick thing there is that I'm not taking notes anymore. So I'm fully dedicated to kind of the person in front of me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not worried about jotting notes down, just fully invested in the person. Or is there any other kind of tools that you use currently that maybe our listeners can kind of start using?
Yeah. And I mean, I will fully admit I am not the AI guru in terms of the latest tools. I think I look at it more from a conceptual standpoint and also what am I seeing? And then my team members are the ones who are diving into the actual tools. But in terms of, what we're definitely using it, as you said, we just use Gemini to record our sessions and then output high level the transcripts, but then also high level insights that might have come out of that call, right? And then using even things just like Gemini or ChatGPT to create research plans and field kits, interview protocols, brainstorming questions. You have to, and this is, my book teaches this too, about you have to understand how to look at those questions and say, is that a leading question? Is that closed-ended? What is the flow of the interview that needs to happen? So you need to have that wherewithal when you're reviewing what it creates. But then in terms of the analysis side, we do use Dovetail and the AI features within that for the analysis. But I have looked at the output and I'm still not convinced it's doing a great job. I feel it's missing a lot of the complexity. However, I do think that's going to improve. So I would say from Dovetail is probably the main one that we're using.
Yeah, I've used Dovetail. I've been holding my breath for it to become super, super useful in that last phase.
Yeah.
It's great at capturing themes. There's that automation piece that I'm really looking for, that connecting the dots. Can you find, there's the labeling of the different conversations. If you can automate that taxonomy part for me, that's the missing piece for me, which I would love.
Yeah, exactly. So it's probably coming, right? And then of course we use Figma and like I was just saying, FigJam, using the AI tools that are embedded within those existing tools. But yeah, maybe I'll have to follow up with I'll go and probe the team on what are you using right now?
Interesting thing is that people are looking for the golden egg, the big thing that's going to take it all away. But whenever you talk to people, they all say well, I use AI for this and for that, but it's always an assisting thing.
Yes.
Back in the day, you had a note taker, so you're talking and I'm writing down, not looking at you, I'm taking notes, but now I can just listen to you and ask a question because, granola or whatever is taking notes.
Yes, exactly.
it's like you have your little team around you so you can focus on your job. While people are like, well, that's going to take away my job. No, it's going to take away the annoying things.
Yes.
What you're saying about FigJam is like it's taking away the empty piece of paper syndrome. Like you do not really have to start from scratch anymore. Like it gives you a good starting point. I've been thinking you're working with lots of companies looking for designers, right? With Outwitly, we have lots of designers looking for work, and many of them are concerned about all the things we've spoken about so far. Pun not intended, but what's the playbook for them? Like you see stuff, day to day. People ask you, for certain roles and skills, and like what should a completely new designer, fresh out of school or even in school, so like what are the steps they should take this year, like to really be the one junior that does get a job?
Yeah. So if I was a junior designer, I'm going to assume that I have no children and I have time on my hands. And then I would say you should spend your spare time learning AI tools, like learn it really, really well, be on top of it. Because it is just de facto, they're going to ask you about it in an interview.
Which tools?
Yeah, which tools, what do you understand about it? And if they can even bring like more on the generative side of what AI could be doing, right? Then that's going to like give them a bit of a leg up. So because these would be a group of people that would have time and the motivation, I would say they should spend their time there. Then I would also say working on understanding the other parts, not just like UI design, not just UX design, really understand UX research or vice versa, whatever it is that you've been studying, make sure you're like upskilling on the other side too. So you're presenting as a really well-rounded candidate. And if you can't get that experience, there's internships, volunteer your time, go to your university and say, hey, I see an opportunity here. Could I work this into a project? Right? Like we've hired people fresh out of school who just had really good projects.
Right.
And so I don't think people should underestimate the fact that you can still get good experience even if it's not paid. And yes, that's ideal. But if you're building up your portfolio and you're building up your skill sets, just be like creative about where can you go and get a little bit of that experience. And if you understand the end-to-end design process really well and you can tell a good story in your portfolio, it's not going to matter so much that was like, did you do that for a Fortune 500 company or did you do that for a school project? It's more showing me that your thinking is there. And so for those folks, I would say that would be really important. And then looking at those more complex environments, right? So not just like the sexy app, because everybody likes a sexy app, right? The consumer facing, a thing that everybody uses on their phones, but look at like the unsexy, complicated stuff and see how you could learn and improve that.
Yeah. So when you're talking about learning AI tools, I would say, pick one, right? Instead of trying to do them all. Right.
I agree.
What do you think?
Yeah,
do you have a top choice? Like, I, for example, all I use basically is Claude.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah. So I yes, pick your AI of choice. Is it ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini?
Doesn't really matter.
Doesn't really matter. But then in terms of, the tools, like I feel like Lovable, everybody talks about that one from a prototyping standpoint. So I would say maybe even focus on a few tools that you can get access to that aren't too expensive, that are UX specific, whether it's UX research specific or UX design specific, but at least you have the spectrum covered, right? So you've got your main AI like ChatGPT or Claude or whatever that you're using, but then you also know and are aware of these other tools that are domain specific.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
so I'm just saying, everything.
Of course.
I think it's good advice taking just one because every week they kind of beat each other. So I don't think it's it's wrong to pick A1. I think just they all essentially do the same thing. It's just they exceed at one particular vertical depending on the week you're looking at.
Yeah.
Them. Yeah.
Yes. Or if you're like my dad, then you can pit them against each other and he'll tell Perplexity like Claude AI did such a better job on this one.
Some AI shaming, LLM shaming.
Some AI shaming. It's He's retired. He has time.
Luckily, they don't have feelings. I mean, I think there's a lot of focus on the prototyping side, like Lovable and that early stage things. But I also think if you're a junior, it's good to focus perhaps more on the end side. Like, can you deliver something?
Yeah.
And this one sentence has been stuck in my mind all week. Like, for a junior, like, you should learn the things current seniors are reluctant to learn. Like, I see a lot of seniors in communities are like, I'm not going to code. That's a developer's job. I'm a designer. Really like, oh, look at me, I'm a designer. Like, they do not want to change. They do not want to, like, they were fine switching from Photoshop to Sketch to Figma. They really are staying in their lane. Like, I'm a designer. I'm the only one allowed to design. Yeah. I think they get stuck. But if you're a junior, you have nothing to lose. Like, you're really new.
Nothing to lose. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Go learn the thing that senior designer isn't willing to do. Like, I think that's your way in.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like that diversification we were talking about, right? It's where, folks that are later in their career are more maybe stuck in their ways, or they just don't have the time. Like, they're in such design debt, in terms of doing user stories and stuff like that it's hard for them to carve out 2 hours or something a week to learn the tool, right?
Yeah.
So they're the junior and intermediate, like, their advantage is when they have a lot of energy and they have time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think that's a great example at the end, like, really to give a playbook to designers to get unstuck, perhaps get that first job or do better on a job. If people want to find more about you, about Outwitly, or perhaps purchase your book, like, where should they go? Where should they connect with you?
Yeah. So people can find me. I'm most active on LinkedIn. So just, I think, linkedin.com/Sara Fortier. And then outwitly.com is obviously the business. And we do have a talent pool. So people can apply to be a part of our talent pool for opportunities that come up. And then if you're interested in learning more about the book or purchasing the book, you just go to designresearchmastery.com or look it up on Amazon and it'll be there.
So I even found it on the largest Dutch bookshop.
Good.
So it is made its way over here.
It started actually there because I'm published with Biz and they're out of the Netherlands. So I'm glad to know.
That's why, perhaps. Yeah.
I'm glad to know that they got it in the big store there. That's great.
Yeah. I looked it up and I was able to find it. So that's a good thing.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. I mean, it looks really interesting. I think it's a smart idea to get a book about soft skills, something that's not easy to replace. We should do some more book reading in this day and age, I think. But now I'm rambling. I thought it was this was a great talk.
Yeah, me
really
too.
Enjoyed having you here. So thanks for that. Yeah, that's it, I guess.
Great. Yeah.
Right.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been an amazing chat, and I feel invigorated. So thank you.
Nice. Thank you. Nice.
That was a great episode. So if you like this content and want to hear more, please like and subscribe.
Yeah. And if you want to see more, please go to designtablepodcast.com, Spotify, Apple Music, all the big players and more.